Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite podcast, the podcast covering the ever-expanding and infinite multiverse of fandom, from movies, comics, TV shows, video games. This week, just movies, I guess, because it's Oscars week. Did anything interesting happen at the Oscars?
No, I think just some good wins, a lot of nice representation. It was a good day at the Oscars. Nothing eventful.
No, nothing that would surely steal the internet for, ever.
Oh, our editor Jim's cutting in.
Hold on. Oh, wait.
Who did what?
What happened to Chris?
Will did, huh?
Oh, no. Oh, man. Yeah. So it's Oscars week. Well, last week was Oscars week. This is Oscars Fallout week, which we usually don't have. But this year, boy.
So, little background. About a week ago after our Marvel Netflix, now Marvel Disney Plus episode, I go to Rob and I say, hey, you want to do the Oscars this week? And Rob said, okay, that's fine. It's just going to be more you talking for a little bit and me just saying, yeah, sounds about right. And then, stuff happened.
Boy, did it.
Look.
We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, it happened, and it's a thing that I guess we should talk about, because who knows what the fallout is going to be from this, honestly. But first, we do have some news. So the Batman just can't stop Batmaning, and we got a deleted scene released on the internet of the Joker, full Joker.
Yeah, so the theories were correct that Barry Keoghan was playing the Joker specifically. I know we had the scene in the Batman where it was roundabout. It could be the Joker. It could just be an inmate that's maybe taking after the Joker. We really didn't know, but now it is confirmed that this is the Joker. This Joker, it's said that he has a condition where he cannot stop smiling. And just by the look of him from this promo, you also maybe get the understanding that he was dropped in the Ace Chemicals vat just based on his deformities on his face and how, not misconstrued, but just straight up just creepy he looks and just how deformed he looks. So how do you feel about the look off the bat?
I'm not in love with it. Obviously understanding that it's a deleted scene and it was taken from the movie, obviously, for obvious reasons. I think the scene itself is evident why it was cut from the movie. You introduce a character like that in a movie that had such a tight story and plot behind it, and it threatens to kind of derail things because you're like, wait a minute, go back to that guy. But I'm not in love with the look. I understand the thought process behind it and the world that Matt Reeves is trying to deliver to us, but it's a little just too over the top for me.
I think less is more in this situation. I think they were getting to the right point of the look, and then they kept running a little bit farther when I think they had the original, because I do like the fact that he's a little deformed,
mm-hmm.
But this is just, he's missing. I thought that's why some people thought it was Two-Face when they first saw the original cut of the movie with the scene with him and the Riddler because of that. So I think, like I said, less is more. I think they could have dialed it back a little bit. But I think the saving grace is, I think Barry Keoghan did a pretty solid job as essentially his debut as the Joker. I think he really, it also adds to the Robert Pattinson being as great as he was in the movie. They have this natural bounce off each other, which does feel like there's something brewing between them. But I'll let you talk about the point you made, because it was a really good point.
It's the Silence of the Lambs thing. This is Hannibal Lecter and Clarice. Batman's going to him for knowledge, for insight on the Riddler. They're not there in that moment as adversaries. They're there to have some sort of, not friendship, but a bond between each other. I understand you. You understand me to a degree. I'm not like you, but am I? I might be, but I'm definitely not like this guy. Yeah. You guys are more similar than we are.
It's one of the more classic Batman Joker arguments, is that Batman's as more crazy than people give him credit for, and that the Joker's not as crazy as people think when you get down to the philosophies of what he's trying to preach.
Yeah, it does a little bit of what the Dark Knight did, but not. It's a little. Honestly, it's probably a little bit deeper than what the Dark Knight did, because what the Joker was trying to prove in the Dark Knight was that Batman wasn't a hero. He wasn't necessarily trying to prove that they were the same. He was just trying to prove that Batman wasn't who he says he is. Where in this, the Joker is more like, he's kind of like a third party to it all, because he explicitly tells Batman in the scene, like, no, you and him, the Riddler, are alike. And Batman's like, absolutely not. And the Joker's like, aren't you?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Let's address the Dark Knight in the room. Let's get that out of the way. First and foremost, from my opinion, relax. I don't think we need to go as far, because essentially what happened, as every other thing happens, it's like when the movie came out, the direct thing to do was, oh, this needs to be compared to The Dark Knight, which, again, and it's something that I'm going to talk about when we talk about the Oscars here in a little bit. Not everything needs to be compared to something. It just doesn't. It's fine that these two things exist. If you don't like one, if you like more, that's the thing to do. Like, obviously our brains are going to go to like one thing more than the other thing, but you can have both and not think one's horrible because one's good. So I think this is a perfect example of that. Like, it's fine that these two things are here. I thought it was a pretty cool scene. I'm glad they cut it from the movie. I think it was the right decision to make. And I hope we see Barry Keoghan, especially since Jared Leto is never going to play Joker again unless the Snyder verse is restored. I'm glad we have... hey, man. I don't know. An
Oscar.
Yeah, it did win an Oscar. Zack Snyder has 2 Oscars now. So... interesting. But yeah, it's fine. It's not the big deal. It doesn't need to be immediately compared to anything. I think it's just it's a fun scene that really, because it's funny when people talk about like they want it to be different, but then they're like, why didn't you do this thing? I think Miss Marvel's gonna suffer from that a little bit. I think it's good. We have this new iteration of the Joker, and now that are what a lot of people are considering their favorite Batman, including myself, now has a new Joker. And cool, we'll see where this goes. And he doesn't need to be full-fledged Joker yet, just like Robert Pattinson's not full-fledged Batman yet. They're not there yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to that. It's an interesting place to pick up the Batman-Joker dynamic compared to what the other films have done, which has been kind of like the introductory phase. You know what I mean? Batman 89 does it and ends it in the same movie. The Dark Knight begins it, and unfortunately, real-life circumstances ended it. Presumably, we would have seen that character again.
100%.
I guess Batman from Affleck's universe kind of has this similar dynamic where they're familiar with each other already, but they're overly familiar.
Yeah, you can tell they're adversaries. It's not like,
Yeah, there's nothing interesting really going on.
And again, that just lends credence to why I'm kind of excited for this Batman and Joker, because of how rich their lore is, and especially what I get excited about this is the whole Batman lore and how vast it is, and I'm talking about Robin specifically, because now that we have an opportunity to see something we've never seen in live action, and that's Joker's interact with Robin, specifically Jason Todd would be the one. So like I said, I think Robert Pattinson's Batman can be one that spans, I mean, top to bottom. Like, we can run through Hush, we've ran through essentially Long Halloween. Like, there's so many storylines that we can kind of roll through, and I think the Robins are going to be some characters that are going to benefit from that, like, to the point where I think one of them might get their own, like, HBO Max show. Like, I think that's, like, the span of this.
Yeah, this has a real opportunity to break the mold from what we've seen from Batman in the past, which is, like, you get 3 or 2, and then you're done.
Yeah.
I think this has staying power.
Yeah, I think so.
So long as, Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson want to be a part of it, I think this has real staying power. I think we could see him evolve truly over time.
Yeah.
He could be the Robert Downey Jr. for... Not even necessarily like a DC universe. He could just be the Robert Downey Jr. for a Batman universe, where he spans the character for 10 plus some odd years and does multiple films or appears in multiple projects. Like, it doesn't have to be, not everything has to connect. We have the Snyderverse adjacent amalgamation that James Gunn kind of also has inherited. Let that be the sandbox. You know what I mean? Let that be like the DCEU extended universe where everything crosses over and everything is fun and yada yada. And then just let Batman be his own Batman universe. There's so much stuff to pull from. And even Kevin Conroy has said recently that he's always found it surprising that the films have never been able to stick to one actor or like one definitive Batman. That's always the thing that surprised him. And I mean, coming from the guy who is
the Batman,
a lot of people's opinions, the definitive Batman, like, there's a reason why that is. Not only is he magnificent in the role as a voice actor, but staying power. He's been Batman for 30 years?
Yeah. Right.
Across so many different media. So I think, I'd love to see this iteration of Batman stick around and let the universe expand.
Right. It's got so much potential. I love how raw and how early all these characters were, even down to the Penguin that had the club already, but he was only being called Oz at this time. Carmine Falcone, spoiler alert, I guess, he had just died. Like, this is Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, super early. Everybody's so early in their inception of these characters. So I really look forward to what they have in store. I think the collective is that we want Mr. Freeze for the second movie, because it's gonna add to like our theory that these movies are more comic booky than people give it credit for, but also like Mr. Freeze can be that dynamic villain, like the tragic villain. Like, this is something I want to see him go up against, because the Riddler was more of a foundational piece of like how he needed to change his kind of morals and his system to fit more into what Gotham needs, not what he thinks Gotham needs. So this one would be more of like a character study of your villain, of like who you save and who you don't save, like what's you to tell you like who I should save, because before it was like there is no saving in the city, we need to like drain the cesspool, as he said, but like Mr. Freeze would be like, why can't I save my wife? What's so bad about me needing to save her? Like, that can get really interesting for not only Batman's arc, but Bruce Wayne specifically, because if you have the time and resources, but you choose not to do it, then that can create a really great story and a really great villain dynamic. And second movies usually are where you shine. Spider-Man 2 and The Dark Knight are the perfect example of having your greatest villain against your greatest hero. So
Thor: The Dark World.
Or the Thor. Oh man, you had me for. It's been a long day, and you had me for a second. And Malekith was ringing in my mind, and I said, "Wait a second, this isn't Captain America against height, I guess. Falling from high places was his villain in Captain America: The Winter Soldier."
Speaking of characters that are in their introductory phase or not, Top Gun got a trailer.
Yes.
Another trailer.
Yeah, so I asked to put this in. This was my own, because obviously I've talked about my film past and why I am who I am, and Top Gun, funny enough, was one of those movies, or one of my foundational movies. So this movie just looks incredibly shot. It's just the practical nature of everything. The story is yet to be seen. I guess that's the big question mark. But from a visual standpoint, this movie, when you kind of choose to do everything practically, it just feels you're immersed. Like, it's just the full immersion of being introduced like inside this world of like what it truly must feel. Airplanes. Yeah, Airplane the movie. No, Tom Cruise looks as good as Tom Cruise gets. You get a younger cast, which is much older now, because this movie was supposed to be released like a year and a half ago, but it didn't.
Hey,
yeah, I'm super excited. Like I said, I love the original Top Gun. It's one of my favorite movies, and now you're telling me that I think Miles Teller is supposed to be Val Kilmer's son, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Which, interesting dynamic, and I think there's a line in the second trailer where he even says like, "My father trusted you. I'm not going to make that same mistake." So, I just want to talk about Tom Cruise as this character for a second, because it's something that's interesting. It's like, I think this is going to play on his unwillingness to, it's not his unwillingness to grow up, it's his stubbornness to not leave behind something that he can, but he doesn't think
much
he
like
can.
real life Tom Cruise.
Right. But I really commend Tom Cruise for some of the work for what he's doing to franchises. That's the best way to put it. Mission Impossible is a perfect example, because I'll never forget when I saw Mission Impossible Fallout for the first time. I walked out of the theater and I said, wait a second, this doesn't feel like all these other franchises. That felt like an actual movie. Like, that felt like a film that people...
And also, funny enough, like, what is that? How many is that? Which one is Fallout? 5?
Fallout's like 7, I believe, or 8. I think Fallout's 8.
And you leave Fallout and you're like, was that the best one?
And can I be... I think it was the best made one. And just down to everything, it was to the point where I immediately, like, I went to Twitter and I followed the director on Instagram, on Twitter, and he, like, daily would just hand out filmmaking advice every single day, how he did this, how he didn't do this, how he interacted with this person. I was just like, that, it's the same thing as Matt Reeves for me. Like, those people are the ones you want to listen to talk about movies for hours on end. It's like, because they actually have a genuine love and care for the art they're trying to display. And he did it so well. So again, with Top Gun, Tom Cruise is really he's really sticking to these roles that he's been playing, but he's making sure that they get a little bit more mature as they go on, and they grow with people, and they're not just dumb popcorn flicks. Like, there's layers to it. Still has everything we love. Like, Mission Impossible had all the, espionage and all the cool spy stuff, but it had some heart. It had stakes. Like, it had compelling characters. It had compelling ideals too. And I think Top Gun's going to also introduce some of those, not introduce, but kind of bring them back. And like, maybe even a time we need this, a movie like this too. It's really interesting, so I can't wait. May, I believe, late May, we're going to see this movie, so we've been waiting for it for so long. I remember seeing that first trailer, and I was like, wow, they actually put some time into this. They put some time and care. Yeah. And Tom Cruise was flying himself. That's the big thing. He said, I'm flying. If I'm not flying, I'm not doing the movie, so.
Yeah, he has a unique ability. He doesn't go back to former things often. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about Mission Impossible, but outside of that, as far as like his iconic roles,
think he's gonna go back to the Mummy?
I don't think he's going back to the Mummy anytime soon.
Wasn't he the Mummy by the end of the movie?
Something like that.
Yeah,
he was like the living embodiment of death. I think he was supposed to be like the big villain of like the big crossover event.
Remember the Monsterverse that they tried to do?
I do remember the Monsterverse. They had that picture of all the cast members.
Russell Crowe was there.
Angelina Jolie was there.
Right.
Whew. What a time. But no.
Everybody was playing catch up to Marvel.
He rarely goes back to these iconic roles. Mission Impossible was really one of the only ones, and now this. So that tells you, like, he really believes in it, and good enough for me. And we'll see what his future holds elsewhere.
Yeah. Off in some other alternate reality, Tom Cruise played Iron Man. We'll see if that comes to fruition next month.
Yeah. Speaking of superheroes, we got some superhero casting news. Sharon Stone has been cast in the Blue Beetle movie.
Cool.
It's still a movie, right?
Yeah, it's a movie.
Okay, yeah, they always confuse me with that.
Yeah.
Like, the TV show, is it a movie? It's a movie.
Yeah.
Playing the villain, playing an original villain designed specifically for this movie. Interesting.
It's two-sided for me. It's very cool because what you can get away with is not a lot of people know about Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle, which is, it's fine because not everybody knows every character. Like, Miss Marvel just had their debut trailer and half the people were mad and then the half the people were like, who is this?
Right.
So, no, I'm still on board with this movie. I'm still on board with this in Batgirl. I mean, you give me Zola Dueña from being just an absolute, like, just lovable creature from Cobra Kai and just get him in the lead role.
Did you just call him a creature?
He's a beetle. He's good people, man. Everybody loves that guy. And
that's wild.
He's a great guy. Maybe edit that out.
No, it stays in.
Yeah, everything stays in. You're going to want to keep everything in when we talk about the Oscars. I'll tell you that much. But no, he's a great person that I've heard of, like, from people, interviews, whatever. Like, he's a great person. So, now that's your baseline to go off of. You're not dealing with necessarily the comic as much. You are, but it's more of like the people you have work on the movie. So I think it's a good addition. And wonder if I don't know if they're gonna do the thing where she's related to him and then they have to fight the family fight. That's something that
she also has a scarab.
Yeah, she also has a scarab. You said that, and then I thought about it, and I was like, "What if they just do that?" And now I'm getting a little nervous.
I mean, I guess you can get away with it because, like, what's Blue Beetle's rogues gallery looking like?
It's Ted Kord's estranged wife coming back for vengeance. Hey, man, put me in the writer's room.
All I'm saying is I won't be surprised if she ends up just being, like, a character with, like, a similar skill set. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Or if she's, like, a corporate person. Those are the only two options that we have.
Yeah. Speaking of terrible people, Ezra Miller got arrested.
Again.
What? Man.
Is this just a segue to talk about the Flash movie?
Yeah. Because, like...
Again, what is this movie?
What is this movie, and why is this guy?
Why does he keep getting arrested?
For assaulting people.
Yeah.
Look, he waged a war against the Ku Klux Klan.
And he had us for a second.
Fair enough. Fair play.
We were like, you know what?
I'm on board.
You ain't half bad. We saw Perks of Being a Wallflower. We enjoyed you in that.
Yeah. You were pretty good in the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Got me a little bit excited to see your Flash movie.
Yeah, spoiler alert, you won best fan moment. You won best cheer moment of all time.
And now, why are you doing this?
In Hawaii, of all places? I thought everybody was supposed to be mellow in Hawaii.
Yeah, what's going on? Like, look, this Flash movie is destined, I feel, at this point. I don't make bold proclamations often on this podcast, but I don't have high hopes for this Flash movie at all.
It's had so many different directors come and go. That's my first red flag, is when directors keep coming and keep going. Like, it feels like a revolving door of who's going to take on the challenge. It should never be that. Like, you should want to direct the movie.
What else is a red flag about this movie? The fact that it's been pushed back about 100 times.
That's probably number 2, and a 2B in my opinion is that there's so many Batman in this movie.
So I saw an interesting tidbit about this. Ezra Miller was cast as the Flash.
Oh yeah.
Before the first season of The Flash on the CW aired, okay? This Flash movie was like a thing. We're making a Flash movie with Ezra Miller. Here he is. He's Barry Allen. And we are now 8 seasons in to the Flash TV show, and this Flash movie still has not come out.
Sad.
That's alarming.
Remember when this was supposed to be a much more simple movie, and it was just supposed to be Flash and Cyborg essentially?
Yep. And then it became Flashpoint, and we were like, "Whoa, wait a second!" And then it became Michael Keaton's in this.
Yeah. And then Ben Affleck's coming back. And then Superman's daughter's in this.
Yep.
And then there's another Flash in this.
Yes. Yikes! It's just this movie. Look,
I'm getting nervous.
At least, look, I'll say this. At least I think Morbius knows what it is. I don't think this movie knows what it is.
Yeah, but I already proclaimed that Morbius was going to be the movie that I lied for, that I was going to say is going to be great.
You don't say that out loud.
Oh, crap. We
have to review it next week.
Why Morbius is the greatest movie of 2022.
Fair. See, now you got me back on board.
Yeah, it's going to be my Venom.
But before we can look to 2022, we have to look back to the year that was in 2021. And what better way to do that than with the...
It's the night of the year.
Yeah. It's... I don't know how many years it's been.
94.
There we go. 94th Annual Academy Awards. It's the first, real Oscars in 3 years.
3 years, correct. Hosted, and people, hosted one, and then no mask too. So it was a very... No watch party.
It was normal.
It was normal until it wasn't. It was normal until it was not.
People were applauding. We had, some nice laughs. Some awards were given. Some people were discouraged and didn't win the awards that people thought they should have. A fun award was given out to the Snyder Cut. It was a grand old time. Mm-hmm. And then, our very own West Philadelphia, born and raised, Will Smith just couldn't help himself. And one of the most
shocking moments in live television history happened.
Yep. Not since Jerry the King Lawler slapped Andy Kaufman on the Johnny Carson show has a exchange of... It wasn't even an exchange of fisticuffs. It was one hand thrown and then a calm walk back to the seat. And then an award wasn't accepted afterwards.
Denzel was involved.
This was craziness. I mean, the internet exploded.
Yeah, this has got to be one of the greatest Twitter moments of all time.
Fun fact, I was casually kind of watching this. I had it kind of on in the background, and then we have a group chat, and I typically don't have the notifications on for it because it can. And then I turn my phone on, and I have 46 messages from this group chat. So I immediately whip around, rewind my Oscars kind of thing, and watch that happen. And I went, nah, that
can't be real.
That could have been real. And it was kind of edited. So I was like, so what really happened? So then I went on the internets, went on the Twitters, and they were like, here's the version that aired in Japan. And I went, oh, sheesh.
Yeah. And there's hope, right? There's hope that it's still not real. But then I thought something. Comedians are pretty light on their feet. And Chris Rock stood there stunned for seconds. He was just standing there and just wow. Minutes. It just was looking at this man.
And then Will Smith, famously Will Smith, Eminem called him out on it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't curse. Will Smith don't got to cuss in his raps to sell records. Will Smith cussed in this instance.
Boy, oh boy. So, background. So, Jada Pinkett Smith unfortunately has alopecia, which I guess he knew,
He had to have known.
Yes, he knew, because
they gotta be friends.
It's not like they're normal people. They're the biggest celebrities on earth. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody about this. The Oscars are always a fun time, because it's like, people like Leonardo DiCaprio aren't real people. Like, they're not real individuals. Yeah. Like, they're just like figures at this point. So, like, Will Smith is on that echelon because he's one of the biggest stars at any given point.
I think one of his interviews one time he even said he doesn't want to be like an actor. He wants to be an idea. Mm-hmm. Homie, you are an idea now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to the point where it's being called getting Will Smith. Like, it's so crazy that one of these, like, immortal actors of all time is now going to be remembered. This is the thing. This is
on
the
the
thing.
Night that he won his first Best Acting Oscar.
The 5th black actor to win in 94 years to win Best Actor. And man, in front of another one, and on the year that another one of them passed away. And this man just let all that rage over the last 2 years, year and a half.
That's ultimately what this is about. It's about him, he's been pretty open over the last few years about his mental health and struggling not just emotionally but physically, because he didn't outright say because of the internet, but the internet was pretty unkind.
It's a vile place
to Will Smith over the last few years, and he got caught in a really bad situation where, like, he was, like, half joking, like, half laughing at, like, the joke, and then, like, you could tell that Jada was just not on board with it, and he just, all that pent up just came out, man.
I think he blacked out for a second. I think it was, and it's coupled with the night, right? Because you have to be a little anxious that you're gonna win. You're one of the biggest people on planet Earth of 7 billion people. You're, like, on the pedestal of one of the biggest people at any given time on this earth, that you're going to win your first Oscar. Like I said, the thing that happened was so crazy because of the night. It's like New York and Hollywood are like two of the biggest cities. So, like, Hollywood in the world, it's Hollywood. It's the biggest night of Hollywood. Once every year, it's this one night where it's everything. And, that's the night.
3 years, since, like, the real last one too. Right. Like, there was a lot of kind of anticipation to this particular
this is
show.
The Oscars. Like, this is the thing. Like, people make jokes about, like, you're acting out, so you're gonna win an Oscar. Like, it's the thing. Like, it's the award to win that you're told when you're a kid. Like, this person, like, is a good actor because we follow actors like this. And Will Smith, like I keep saying, he's one of these people on planet Earth that just, he's a stop person. You stop to think about what Will Smith is doing. And coupled with
we do now.
Yeah, coupled with all that, I think just got to the point where it just, like a rubber band, it finally snapped.
Yeah, it's easy to armchair quarterback and be like, well, he shouldn't have done it and this, that, and the thing. Look, if you're one of those people that has never made an irrational, impulsive, emotional maneuver, said an emotional, impulsive thing,
you're not a human
in your life.
You're not real.
All props to you.
Yeah.
But I have yet to meet a person like that. I like to consider myself a pretty level-headed individual. I've done it. I've acted out, said things, done things that I'm not, in the moment, that you're just not thinking. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And couple that with the immense pressure and scrutiny that he's been under. Like, it's easy to be like, oh, he's a celebrity, so he should have thick skin. Like, he's a human first. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We don't know a fraction of what goes on in Will Smith's head.
And I know the argument for celebrities is like, well, we don't care because they don't have to face some of the same problems. But that, again, they're still people. They're just people that are extremely lucky and worked hard. Sorry that not everybody can have that same thing happen to them.
Yeah, they still go through things, and sometimes it can be worse when you're going through a thing as a celebrity as opposed to being a regular person, because all eyes are on you, mm-hmm. and the internet's always talking about you. It's
a poor choice of words to use. All eyes are on you with Jada and Tup. That's horrible.
But I harken back to unfortunately, I think of Chadwick Boseman and his passing, and how people were just like ridiculing his appearance and all this stuff, and then come to find out he was suffering from cancer for the better part of 4 or 5 years and passed away from it, and you just don't know. You don't know what these people are dealing with, the pressure that they're under, what they're feeling, and Will made a decision. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, it's a moment that's gonna kind of follow his career for
till he parts. Honestly, that's just one of those things you're never gonna forget. Like I said, it's just the situation. It's not like they're at some after party. It's not like they just saw each other on the street. It's the biggest night of the year
on the stage
in the entire world. Like, it was the biggest on the stage. Like, if it happened behind the scenes, that's one. It was on the stage.
If it happened off camera, but
stories can be told, things can be, but we saw it. Everybody saw it. Like, we were there. Like, we were present. Like, the awkward nature of the situation too, because again, it's Will Smith, so you're like, this person you essentially look up to when you're a kid, it's just acted irrationally and
nobody in the room like really understood it either,
because they thought it's the Oscars, so they thought it was a bit, and it felt like a bit until it was until Chris Rock just was standing there and they just kept cutting away. That's when I knew it was real. That's the moment that I said, oh, this is a real thing. That, like you said, he probably saw Jada sitting there just not pleased. And again, it's a tough situation because, one, Chris Rock, obviously it's a poor joke. I don't think there's any, but he is a comedian, so things are gonna be said. But like I said, let the system do the job, let the thing do its job, because he was gonna get berated for that joke regardless.
Yeah, let the joke bomb.
Right, let the joke bomb,
because it clearly didn't land, because he did that like like that comedy thing, like after you tell a bad joke and the audience receives it as a bad joke, and he was like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, he knew it didn't land, so just let it not land.
Right.
But I'm doing the armchair quarterbacking thing that I said not to do. But we've talked enough about that. Let's talk about the actual show, which had some surprises.
Sure did. Run me down the list. I guess I gotta flex the muscles real quick. So.
Well, I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with let's leave some acting for last.
Okay.
Let's start with some technical stuff.
Well, I mean, I guess we can do the technical stuff just because it was pretty much
one movie
dominated by one film. Unsurprisingly, Dune racked up numerous awards and accolades in all technical categories, from editing to sound design.
Sound design. Hans Zimmer won Best Original Score. Sound mixing. Cinematography. Greg Fraser won. Which, honestly, unless a movie comes out of the Dark Horse, I mean, for me, I know it's only March, but for me right now, he's got it for Batman as on top of Dune. Obviously, there's going to be a whole bunch of... I mean, we're getting Avatar at some point at the end of the year. That could easily upscale that very quickly. So we'll see. But yeah, as of this moment, it's Greg Fraser is just one of the best working today. But every technical award that movie was winning.
Yeah, so...
Production design, I believe, too, it won. Like, didn't matter what it was.
Yeah, so let's take a back seat for a second and let's stop on Dune for a second, because this was an interesting one, right? It was nominated for and won pretty much everything. Technically, it was nominated for Best Picture as well. Didn't win, obviously, but no best... We talked about this a little bit before the Oscars. No Best Director nomination. Not even to get a nomination is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, and I mean, so I keep hearing this argument, and again, it's an opinion-based thing, and what I really want to get out of this whole Oscar talk that we have is, like, we need to stop focusing on the direct competition versus we need to focus, and this is what got upscaled, unfortunately, last night from the situation. But even without the situation, it still was getting upscaled from the actual thing that the Oscars. I think Wanda Sykes even said it in the it's a celebration of film. Like, we've gotten so far away from that, and like, for somebody like me, that really just is, it stinks that we're so far away from that. So, because I was talking to people about Dune, and like, every argument for Dune over and over again is the movie is boring, or the movie, like, it didn't grab my attention. And like, I always hear that, and then my first thing to think, and again, it's an opinion based, but my first thing to think is like, was it because you didn't give it the time to develop in your mind, or did you just need to be entertained from start to finish? Like, obviously movies are entertainment at the end of the day, but they're also art itself. So like, I don't know. For me, when I watch Dune, like, going into like the Gom Jabbar scene and like just watching, like, that's a tension based thing. It's not specifically supposed to be an entertaining thing. It's supposed to be more. That movie's more of a feeling. Like it's supposed to be like the lore itself is supposed to be built. The feeling that you get and the themes that you're getting. There's a scene in that movie that it plays back in my mind. Like it's always like that thing where you're like, if I were to get like an inspirational quote tattooed, like I would get it. It was where they were being chased into the sandstorm, and it's like it just rings in my mind. Like it's just like whenever you're thinking about life and you're like, I'm having a tough time, I think about it. It was when he kind of had his second prescient vision, and Jamis kind of gives him the advice of like I think it's layman's terms, like life isn't something like we shouldn't go against the flow of life. We should move with it. Like it should be something that we experience. It's not like I believe the direct line is it's not something to question. It's a reality to experience is life itself. So it's like just hearing that in like a movie like that, like such like a powerful quote, like I can't look at this movie and not think like all that stuff is so important. It's like beyond the technical stuff, all this, narrative stuff I think is so potent and so impactful that I just think that I'm telling you, I'm becoming Martin Scorsese just because it's not a Marvel movie. It's not the initial thing is like, that wasn't cool. Like, this isn't something. Like, another argument I heard was the final act wasn't climactic. And I was like, I'm sorry that every movie didn't need to end in a big, CGI third act. I didn't know there's a red flag above every movie in the corner that says you need to end in a big CGI third act. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I always say that, like...
What's funny, though? It's almost, Dune's in this weird place to me where, it's not quite, quote-unquote, Marvel enough to be that kind of movie, but it's also too Marvel to win an Oscar.
Yep.
Because I think that is part of it. Mm-hmm. Because historically, and I'm cycling through these Best Picture winners, none of them are... the sci-fi kind of fantasy. It might go back to when Lord of the Rings won.
Yeah, that's why I asked you before the show started. Like
2003, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. That's as far back as you go to get to the last non-drama years. Kind of film to win Best Picture.
And it's radical that something like that even won because the Oscars are curated to drama because that's the one emotion we all feel. Like it's the one, like we're all in a drama-based life that we all are plugged into if you look at it to the Matrix way. Mm-hmm. But we talked about it when we did our Dune review, like sci-fi and specifically the way Denis Villeneuve, and then somebody else that hopefully is going to get a lot of recognition in the next year is Alex Garland that did Annihilation and Ex Machina. Like, science fiction is cool, and I love science fiction because of the thing it needs to do. Like, it needs to present, like, these crazy worlds, but the only way to personify it is through people and, like, how they interact with each other and, like, how they live in this, like, alien world to us. Like, how are they interacting? Is it alien to them, or is it just regular life to them? That's, like, why movies like Her are, like, great example. Like, that is a sci-fi world because it is an OS that just became sentient, but that's not the perspective of the movie. Like, you don't feel it. It feels like it feels normal. So, like, Dune is, like, a perfect example. Like, this kid, his whole life was upended. Like, I mean, completely upended. Like, I always think about that scene the scene I really love from that movie was right after the Gom Jabbar scene where she's talking, Lady Jessica's talking to the Reverend Mother, and it's fog. Like, there's a whole bunch of fog, and, like, you see him standing there afterwards, and, like, the fog kind of separates them because of, like, how it's real. It's, like, how it's supposed to be, like, how much they're separated now, like. And she says, like, you don't, like, this is bigger than you. He's just like, no, you're just trying to curate me into this God, essentially, instead of letting me live my own life. Like, it's, you people only you only build and, like, you mold to your own vision. You're not doing this for the betterment. You're doing it for the betterment of yourself. Like, just small stuff like that. Like, all, like, the acting noms, like, I'm sorry, they're always gonna go to those they always will go to drama movies. That it just will. Like, unless, I mean, Black Panther's a perfect, like, people were excited when Black Panther won or got nominated for Best Picture, but it didn't have any acting nominations. It didn't. Then because they're gonna go to all the drama movies.
Yeah. And
like I said, the one that I said, if there was one thing from Dune, it was Lady Jessica. It was, why am I blanking on her name? I'm going to remember it.
I'll find it.
Rebecca Ferguson.
There you go.
Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica was easily, if I were to sneak somebody from that movie into the acting nom, it was her. And it's not even, it's just, she gave it was such a raw performance as like, I genuinely believed her as a mother that knew she did so, she knew she messed up. Like she knew that she brought a child into this world to only turn him into a god essentially. And like, she didn't want to live like that.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to ultimately is the people, the Academy that votes on these, they look at a movie like Dune and they go, looks good, nominate it for all the technical awards, and then by proxy it has to be nominated for Best Picture because it won all these technical awards. But beyond that, like, what are they seeing? And it shows when they don't nominate Denis Villeneuve for Best Director. They don't do anything with acting. They clearly just see it as a spectacle movie, and they don't see it as anything more than that. And I think that's super unfair to that movie in particular. And on top of being unfair to the genre, it's unfair to that movie in particular because I think there's a lot more to it than it just looks nice.
Yeah, some of those the imagery in that movie is just so incredible, but that doesn't get personified without your actors. Like just having just Rebecca Ferguson and Timothée Chalamet bouncing off of each other is really good. I mean, even Oscar Isaac just being this father that just he simply and he knows what he essentially knows what he signed up for by having his concubine be a Bene Gesserit. He knew exactly what he was signing up for. He knew the stipulation that was going to happen, but he still chose to do it because it's such a human emotion. It's just love. It's simple. It's like all those things just being overshadowed because this movie looked great. It's and for people to discredit it because of, and like we said, this is opinion. This is just my opinion. Like, sure. There's probably people that are the opposite of the coin, that this movie was absolutely boring and this movie had nothing. I just don't know how you look at some of those scenes and just see just the raw emotion from some of these actors and just say, well, that movie was boring, or just watch the third act. And it's like, I always use the argument of research papers. It's like nobody ever wrote a research paper in their life, so they never had to look deeper into anything in their entire life. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's a combination of that and dramas are typically easier to digest. Yeah, they are. Like, you know what the story is, you know where the story's going. Dune, you have to ingest a lot of information. You're like, wait, who is this? What is their job? What is going on? What is this planet? Like, you spend a lot of time asking yourselves those questions, and to the movie's credit, it does a really good job. I think it does. Of explaining that stuff. But people don't have time to be explained to while they're watching a movie. They just want to, they look at a movie like Coda, which is easy to understand. You're like, okay, I see the character, I see their motivation, I see their arc. With Dune, you're like, okay, I got the characters, I got the plot, I got the arc, but what is happening? And when you're talking about an Academy Award winning film, people just don't have time for it, which is unfortunate, which I think, hopefully, I mean, it hasn't changed in 95 years. Yeah, it's just taking the complexity out of what film can be. It's a little disheartening. I think it's just this Oscars thing has just established its own kind of corner of film. I don't think, obviously, winning an Academy Award is that's the end game, right? That's the goal, right? But it's also not an indicator that you didn't make a good movie or you didn't make, a movie with some craftsmanship, because some of these movies are just never going to get that kind of spotlight. They're never going to get that kind of recognition for being an Academy Award winning. It's why we use the term Oscar bait when we look at certain movies that are released. Green Book's it's the first movie that came to my mind when I hear Oscar bait. This movie was just made to get nominated for an Academy Award. That's its purpose, and it achieves its purpose. But movies can be more than that. And I think filmmakers should aspire to be more than that, especially if they want to make movies that are outside of the Oscar norm, because you're never going to get recognized for it. It's what bothers me the most about why, Marvel tries so hard to get nominated for stuff. Who cares? Yeah. Just make your stuff. Yeah, and I'm going to get into that when we talk about Coda winning Best Picture, because I'm on the side of Coda being recognized the way it was. It was not. I don't even think it was in that, because I watched every Oscar movie. I don't even think it was in the top 5 of that list. It was a feel-good movie, and I think it was the most no harm, no foul movie at the time. I think if the list was expanded to 20 movies, I would probably have Coda on that list. It was a really well-made movie, and the emotional shot that it gave you from like what I reviewed it earlier, like the second and third act, the emotional punches they never stopped running. And Tony Coaster, who won Best Supporting Actor, you feel like when you feel a performance, there's something that's like unmistakable about it. It's just something like there's no feeling like it there's no like words you can say right away. It's just a feeling you get, just chills you get just from watching somebody act, because essentially what acting is, you're just pretending real life. That's what it is. So yeah, I'll talk about that later, about what the Oscars are and just kind of what film Twitter and like what film and what it should actually be, and like how far we're delineating from both paths.
Yeah. I think your point about Coda is a good one, because like I said, the last 2-3 years have been pretty bad. Globally.
Yeah, and I didn't even hate the best, because if we want to talk about the last 2 years, so we have 2020 was Parasite, and in my 100% rightfully so, I thought that was the best movie of 2019. It was the best movie in some time, period, in my humble opinion. And then Nomadland, I know the argument for Nomadland was, again, Nomadland is boring, and it's what people forget is that movies don't have, that's the point. It's not supposed to be the same thing every single, that's why now like Steven Spielberg, it's like, it's not an oligarchy of how we do it. It's like, it's not a monarchy. Like, it's not like Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino sit on a council and they're like, all right, you're going to do this one, and then you're going to do this one, and we're going to rotate. It's like, that's why there's thousands of filmmakers and people that work on movies for that point. It's an artistic vision. Like, why would you want 100 Van Goghs where you can have a Van Gogh, a Picasso, like you can have different stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Just knocking off a couple other ones. Best costume design, Cruella.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cruella got a lot of love yesterday.
It did. Yeah. Good looking characters in that movie.
Yeah. The costume change where she was on the truck was the one that probably won that for them. So good on them.
Drive My Car, best international feature.
So I watched Drive My Car, and that's my type of movie. That's perfect. It's that kind of, again, it's that minimalistic approach into like what my argument for movies, like, I think we need to exist more, like from a movie in universe perspective. Like, I think it says something to just exist more. Like, so many arguments against movies are like, nothing happened. Like the Batman, remember, like, that was an argument, like, what did he achieve? I was like, not everything needs to be, I directly punched the villain in the face and that villain died. Like, that's such a boring way to do it. Like, it's the counter argument. It's like, like, you joked about Thor 2 earlier. Like, let's take that. Like, he beat Malekith. Cool. Did not make for a more compelling story. But if you look at something like Winter Soldier, like, every ideal that they had was just undermined and undone. Or
even keeping with the same trilogy. Look at Thor Ragnarok.
Right.
Look at everything that's gained and lost.
Right.
That's a character-driven movie. Like,
right.
Thor: The Dark World is not a character-driven movie, and that's the problem with it.
Right. So, yeah, just going to my point, like, just kind of existing as people in life that you would normally see. Like, I love that. Mm-hmm. Like, the movie started off like it's the main character and his wife just laying in bed, and they're just talking about kind of like this girl just like being in this other boy's, and it's like when you think about it, it's like, what does this have to do with anything? But I was like, think about some of the conversations you've had with your friends or family. Like, they don't mean anything, but they do. They mean everything at the end of the day. Like, they mean nothing and everything. So it's like, approaching a movie like that is so interesting, but I just love kind of like the nomadic nature of the movie too. It's very melancholy, but there's just like a sliver of like hope that gets layered over it, that gets sprinkled over it. So, Drive My Car is really well directed. That's the type of movie that I like, man. It's just it's just existence. Like, it's just something to say about existing a little bit. Like, it's just like movies like Her, good example. Moonlight, probably my favorite film of all time. The reason I want to work on movies like where people just exist and they go through real life stuff.
Yeah. Those definitely, in my experience, also make for the best stories. Mm-hmm. Strip them down from anything, from any genre. Those are my favorite kinds of stories. Mm-hmm. are ones where they're character driven about a character going on a journey. Mm-hmm. That's the blueprint. Best original song, Bond. It's always Bond.
Yeah.
Whenever Bond's
the
nominated.
the only contention to that was Be Alive from King Richard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Bond sizzle reel, I don't know what it got me. It got me immediately because again,
best editing. Give it to the guy who made the Bond sizzle reel.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, whoever the editor of that Bond sizzle reel, great job because it showed it like we talked about on our No Time to Die review. It showed kind of the juxtaposition for like the ridiculous nature of how crazy Bond can be and just like the actual realistic take that the Daniel Craig Bond movies took. Like marrying those two and like in No Time to Die, like. I'm not gonna lie, No Time to Die has gotten better and better as the more I think about that movie. It's just I don't think about it as, you know, as crazy as we thought the ending was. It's just like it still is this guy that's the secret agent that barely does anything wrong and is just this cool suave guy. Like that's ridiculous. Like it's a ridiculous thing. So it's like it's not as ridiculous when I think about it in the grand scheme. And also, that movie looked really good. Cary I forget who directed it. I remember his first name's Cary. Did absolutely phenomenal job shooting that movie. And it's funny because you lose Roger Deakins as your cinematographer in that movie, so you have to kind of keep
Cary
that same
Fukunaga.
Yes, Cary Fukunaga. Yeah, you have to keep that same energy up as you go into another movie without the world's greatest cinematographer to many. So, and he definitely did it. And just narrative wise, I mean, I hate saying spoiler alert from these things, but I just know that there's that one. Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry that it's been months since you haven't seen the movie. But when he quote unquote dies at the end, like him just talking to his girl at the end, just it got me because it was a simple line. It's just like. He was just like, it's the Han Solo thing where she's just like, she is your daughter. He's like, yeah, I know that is. And it's just like...
That moment when she said, there's no time to die, James Bond. Mm-hmm. He was like, there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just all that stuff worked for me. So that Bond, Bond is a really great character when you through and through. There's a reason why he's stuck around for 60 years, and there's a reason that he gets so much tender love and care anytime he's out on the big screen or small screen or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And anytime you're up against Bond in Best Original Song, just go home.
Right.
Because you're not going to win.
And that Billie Eilish on top of it. Her performance was really good, too. I do want to say that. She's you Billie Eilish haters, relax.
Yeah, she's
like 19.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's a good singer.
Well, let's talk about the post-slap award. My man Questlove.
Yeah, shout out Questlove. Man, I know Summer of Love is just, it's one of those, it's just the thing that sucks is how many, and that's the beauty of documentary filmmaking. It's not realism, it's real. There's no realism, it's the real nature of it. So it's just understanding, like, it just stinks how many things that we'll never know until things like that are released. So, yeah, he did an amazing job. And what you feel is like, and it's funny, I just, it's so crazy. I just listened to The Roots' first album for the first time, and I'm like, you can tell that they actually love music. Like, it's more over them just being, good at what they do. It's something to actually love what you do on top of being good at it too. And you can tell that Questlove put a lot of himself, and he really did some soul searching to make sure like this was the proper project. And I do think there's a reason he won this award yesterday. And it sucks that it had to come after that because Questlove dedicated it to his father, and like he started crying. Like it was so emotionally impactful. So good on him. I hope he continues down this route of making sure music's on this pedestal of like my argument for film is what he kind of uses for music going forward.
Best animated feature? Encanto?
Yes.
Disney, man.
Yeah.
Look.
I heard an argument that I wanted to bring up, and that Disney uses this as their self-promotion because they don't have any contention in any of these best animated categories. And
yeah,
hey,
look, they revolutionized.
Yeah, conspiracy theory is going to conspiracy, but hey,
look,
I'm listening.
They revolutionized the genre of animated film.
They did.
I mean, if it wasn't such a prestigious like fancy pants thing, this would have been this would be the Disney Award for animated features. Right. Like this is where they come from.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's an award that had only been truly giving out in 2001, and there's a reason for that because.
It wasn't prominent. Right.
But also that, if it was a thing, Disney would have won them from 1950 onward.
1930 onward. They've been just since inception.
So, yeah.
Favorite animated movie? What's your favorite animated movie?
Ever?
Yeah.
Man, I'm partial to The Incredibles. I think The Incredibles is really good.
Did we just become best friends? Because that's I thought you were going to say Into the Spider-Verse, and then I was going to say Incredibles. That's crazy.
It's the best Fantastic Four movie that's ever been made.
Yes, it is. That scene where he's training. Shout out Michael Giacchino for being one of the greatest composers to ever walk this earth, because that training montage, The Life is Incredible, I listen to that sometimes.
Yeah,
I listen to movie scores.
The Incredibles
I'm
is
insightful.
That's fine. I listen to video game scores, so same
Same
energy.
Look at us.
I guess we can do the acting stuff now, unless you had other things you wanted to mention.
What else do we got in there? I think there's one more thing that we're missing. Oh, editing. Well, we could just run through. I definitely want to talk screenplays, because that's
screenplay.
That's my
I missed
thing.
that one. Yeah,
Kenneth Branagh got a lot of love yesterday or on Sunday. I will say that much. And good on Kenneth Branagh. He played a good cackling villain in Tenet.
Yeah, that's not like he won the screenplay award though.
Right. So Kenneth Branagh does more than just acting. Sometimes he writes and sometimes he directs, and he did both. And
Some
he got
people want him
nominated
for
both.
Dr. Doom? Question mark.
I mean, I know who I want for Dr. Doom, because I think it would be cool against John Krasinski if that happens. But he would be. I think he's a little too old if we're gonna do it. I think he just aged out of that. Cillian Murphy, however, I think is prime, because he doesn't look like he's 50. And when I saw he was 50 the other day, I said, "Excuse me,
He's 50?
He's 50.
Holy smokes!
He looks like he's 40."
Wow.
Yeah, shout out Cillian. This is a Cillian Murphy stand. Once Oppenheimer comes out, all the attention we gave to Andrew Garfield is going to shift to Cillian Murphy. Love that guy.
Belfast though, screenplay. What else you got to say about it?
Cool. I mean, the thing was, there's two things. So, worst person in the world was like the consensus. That's what film Twitter wanted to win, and I was on board with that. I had to sneak my way to watch worst person in the world, because we love movies and we'll stop at nothing to watch movies. That movie, again, it's a perfect movie for me. It's just a very real, like, as people are just existing, of just like the weird stuff that people do in their days walking this earth. So it's just, in terms of original screenplay, I think something like that. Or the elephant in the room for that category is Licorice Pizza. And I think we should probably talk about it now. Did you see Licorice Pizza?
I did.
How'd you like Licorice Pizza?
It was good. It was a good, kind of felt very throwbacky, very kind of... Very
throwbacky, very... And am I a Paul Thomas Anderson connoisseur at this point? I've seen all of his movies, yeah. This is the most accessible movie he's ever made. It's the least cerebral taxing movie he's ever made, if that makes sense too. Like, I
remember seeing, not being totally ignorant to it was coming out, but like he was making it. I saw the preview for it, and I forget what movie I was seeing that I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, oh, like that looks fun. That looks really interesting. It looks like a very like throwback kind of coming of age.
And it had everything going for it. It had the late and great Philip Seymour Hoffman, his son Cooper, which it's funny, like I would be watching Knicks games as a kid, like just seeing like, the celebrity cam, and then seeing, Cooper Hoffman there, and now he's starring in one of the bigger movies of the year, has made it amazing. And then Alana Haim as well. She gave an amazing performance, and I'm surprised she didn't also sneak into the best actress category for what she did. But the elephant in the room about this movie is two things. It's the age gap, and it's the representation of how we portray and how we portray different races.
Couple of black eyes.
Yeah, and they're you got hit. Boy, did you get hit.
You didn't get hit like Will Smith hit. You got hit like Mike Tyson hit.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? This is the most controversial thing we've had to talk about yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think both things are fair criticisms.
Sure.
I think they're very kind of narrow-minded ideals to, things that might have flown 20 years ago, but now not so much. And that doesn't mean it was okay 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. It just means that we weren't kind of as in tune with other people's lived experiences as we are now. And that's growth and that's evolution. And yeah, I think, was it necessary for the movie? Probably not. You know what I mean? And that's just things that you have to consider when you're writing movies is, am I putting this in because I need it or because I want it? And that's delineation. And, it also comes down to having a crew around you that is like, hey, man, like, maybe don't put this in.
And that even speaks more volumes to being a writer as well, and like not having people obviously check your work, but I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson, I don't think there's any writer that's in Hollywood that doesn't have at least one person check their work, but I mean, if I'm to say just a name off the top of my head, I don't think Quentin Tarantino's having a whole round table read through his movie and be like, no, it's Quentin Tarantino. He's going to get off everything that he wants to. So I think Paul Thomas Anderson deserved that right. And I think he still does because of his body of work, but it's slightly ticked down a little bit after this.
Yeah. And I mean, the Tarantino thing is true, but at the same time, he's obviously had tons of controversial stuff.
Django might being the biggest one.
80-20, maybe even 90-10, it's for a purpose, and it's a commentary on that exact thing that he's including. Whereas in this movie, there wasn't much of a commentary. It was just in the movie.
So the mockery of Asian people is the bigger
offender.
And it's funny because the other offender it's still bad. It's still bad, but that one was because it's your thing about wants and needs. The one is that like it's just like you understand what the idea was of like how like socially inept people were in the 70s and before and after, unfortunately, but how they thought of people that didn't look like them. That's just normal. It's something that can fly. And I think that was the idea, but again, it's not understanding what year you're making this movie in.
Yeah.
And the other one...
And not really having a commentary on it.
Right.
Either. Just kind of having it in the movie to have it in the movie.
Because the movie doesn't change if that's not in the movie. The movie's the same. The other thing, the movie changes if it's not in the movie, and this is where it gets extremely tricky, because you have 15-year-old, liking a 25-year-old, and possibly her liking him back too, which gets really, really tricky and really finicky and really touchy. So that one's more of, in my opinion, I said it when I walked out of the theater, that movie would have been, if that movie had her be 17 or 18 and like her only being that little but thinking she's so much more mature, would have immediately ignited that movie to be the movie to beat this year. That was my opinion as soon as I walked out. If that wasn't a thing, because it's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, that's a feel-good movie, because that's not something he usually, I mean, I guess Punch Drunk Love a little bit and Boogie Nights were probably the two that come to mind when you think like PTA feel, like quote-unquote feel good.
Yeah.
But if she was like 18 and he was 15.
And you still have, the message I think is still kind of conveyed the same, because even when you think about that kind of, can't believe I'm going into this, but like you think about that kind of relationship in real life between like an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, people still think it's like off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Off is, it's still illegal.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, it's like, you're still two, like, high school, in the same realm.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, 25, like, you're, like, an adult.
An adult.
And you're like, like, there's really no positive way to spin this.
Right. Right. And, yeah, that's where it becomes really, really tricky and really... Like I said, what would have benefited is if they were, like, not together, because that's what the movie's about. It's like, it's kind of like... It's like lust almost. It's like what you're living in Hollywood Hills, being, a young entrepreneur, whether your pursuits be moral or not, is something that makes his character really dynamic, in my opinion. But if she would have been 17, turning 18, just about to go to college, and she still had these same arguments, like, I'm going off into the real world to do these real things, and you're sitting here as you're a child, and I'm not. Like, that might have even made it more interesting, like, that they are so close in age, but, like, she thinks she's so far apart from him. But again, like, it's a movie too. Like, that's the argument, that it's a movie. It's not a real thing that happened. Like, it's not obvious. You don't need to condone it to like. It's funny how people love characters that are killers, but this was the one that really ignited everybody.
Well, and that's always the misrepresentation of art and movie making and any type of art. Really, is you putting a thing in a movie is you condoning a thing, and that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there are real friggin' weird people that condone some real weird stuff. But sometimes it's also just like, I'm showing you this thing, not that I endorse it or condone it, but that this thing exists and this thing is real, and I'm not making a commentary one way or the other. It's just, this movie just is. The story just is, and, you know, did it need to be the way it is? But
if he approached this the same way he approached, like, There Will Be Blood or, like, Magnolia, movies like that are way more, like, they're way more serious, they're way more narrative based in the sense that it's just like these tough and rugged things that are hitting you all at once. It would have probably played a little bit better because the immediate feeling you're getting from the movie is like, it's euphoric almost. Like I can go into the technical stuff about this movie for days. The movie was shot incredibly, and Paul Thomas Anderson's notorious for shooting his own movies. Like what he'll do is, like, he won't have a credited director of photography. He'll have some, I think he's one of his collaborators he's used for a while. What he'll do is he'll have the two of them, because I think I looked at, it's like in Great Britain, like, you need to have a director of photography to, like, have your movie shown for, like, union purpose, something like that, something weird like that. So, like, he just has him so he can put his name there, but, like, they work together, because it's a big task to be the director and the cinematographer. But I mean, you talk about backyard movies, that's how it works. Like, you don't have the luxury of having both. But it's cool. It's like, he still is somebody that's super inspirational to me, and it's one of my three pillar directors for myself. But in terms of all the technical stuff, his writing ability is absolutely incredible. The way he crafts his stories are just so inspiring. But something like this, it's just the Asian commentary is just, the narrative doesn't change if you leave it out of the movie. And the age gap, if she's 17 turning 18, because the crux of the movie is ultimately, like, you're rooting for this, right? And then you have to take a step back and you're like, wait, I'm rooting for this. Like, what's going on? Like, it's weird. Whereas, like, if that age gap is diminished, you don't feel as weird about rooting for the romance, because that's the crux of the story. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be rooting for the will they, won't they, like, thing. But in this, it's just weird. Like, you find yourself, like, questioning yourself. You're like, wait, I shouldn't be rooting for this. It's weird. But technically, I mean, and I know we got a real off talk, but talking about original screenplays, like, imagine if those two things weren't in play for this, and this was, I think it wins Best Picture, it wins Best Original Screenplay. Like, those two, I think, are down packed. I also think Alana Haim gets nominated for Best Actress, because I think the Academy probably took that into consideration, the narrative, and they were like, maybe we should keep you away, because it was her debut role, and I bought every second of it. I bought every second of what she was doing in that movie. And I love Gary as, like, that, like, entrepreneur-esque, like, kind of mogul at 15. Like, you're biting off more than you could chew in the valley, but you're successful at this. Like, the way he interacted with people was so, like, it was so interesting, because he had control in every situation, because he's a child star. So, like, why wouldn't you? Like, it's just, the guy can write. Like, he truly can write characters, and, like, and have this camaraderie with these actors to pull the best performances out of people. And it shows. These are two main actors in a movie that was nominated for Best Picture that have never acted before. Like, they might have done things here or there, but this is their debut feature roles, and, like, it didn't feel like it for either of them. So yeah, totally. I guess let's transition then to the acting awards, starting with supporting actor and actress. Obviously, we had and Ariana DeBose for West Side Story. So Symmetry? Yeah. Same award was won in years past. 1962, I believe it was, the 1962 Oscars. Same role, same character, same award. And, I mean, that kind of goes off to Steven Sodenheim, for... I mean, is that just good writing, ? That you wrote this compelling of a character? Because classically, after Bernardo dies, it's really when she needs to become... It's kind of like, it's this look you have to have at Maria, and it's like this argument of, like, you realize, like, your brother is dead, right? Like, you realize the person you love just killed your brother. Like, is that okay? Like, and I just lost my husband, and I just need to live with this because you're in love? Is that a fair argument to have? And it's like, Ariana DeBose is, I mean, if she isn't already, she's gonna be an absolute megastar. I mean, she just got cast in Craven, I believe. Yeah. And I mean, I don't think that's anything to go crazy about, but I think she's going to start getting more and more roles. And it's just it's funny, like, the amount of respect and love I've gained for musicals since I saw La La Land in 2016 is just, like, rocketed. And it's just, like, I don't think people realize how difficult, and always what people say about musicals is, like, it's not real. And I'm like, yeah, and also a purple guy with gems in his hand, it's also not real. Sorry. Like, it's the multiverse question of movies. It's like, movies aren't the same thing each time. Like, it's a different thing you're doing. That's what makes them so beautiful. So, like, I was really blown away from West Side Story. It was funny when they were doing the director thing. I was like, I know Jane Champion's gonna win. But I was like, I wouldn't be mad if Steven Spielberg snuck one out, because that movie. Did you watch the new West Side Story?
I did.
It's why I made the argument. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Like, there's a reason Steven Spielberg's on that Mount Rushmore of movie makers. Right. Like, it's the spectacle he creates when he's making these movies.
And that was the big question, even when they announced this was being made, and they were like, "Wait a second, what?
Yeah, why
Steven Spielberg's doing West Side Story?
Right? Go make another Jaws.
Yeah, do another Jaws.
Yeah,
Steven Spielberg.
Do an E.T.
But hey, man, that's his thing.
It's not about the narrative. It's about the movie making. That's what makes him so great.
Right.
It's everything he does on set. Like, it's like watching...
He's a director's director.
Yeah, that's
when you think of directors directing.
Yeah,
it's him.
Yeah, and he even said, like, this is the most fun I've had since E.T. making a movie. And E.T.'s one of those feel good movies. It's this movie. Every second I was watching this movie, it's just the magic of movie making, and that's Steven Spielberg. It's Martin Scorsese. It's Quentin. It's again. That's the argument I'm going to make at the end. It's like, this is what the Oscars, it's a celebration of film and, like, how important this realm of art is. It's the only art that encapsulates all other arts. Mm-hmm. It's the only one that does it. It captures moving picture, music, sound. Like, it's the only thing that has everything else encompassed into it. So, yeah, it's a perfect example. Again, it was this Martin Scorsese thing and Quentin Tarantino and Spike Lee from 2019, where they all made movies, and it was just like, hey, we realize that everybody else is making movies, but there's a reason why we do what we do. And here's The Irishman, here's The Five Bloods, here's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, this for Steven Spielberg for me. Like, here's West Side Story. Like, I'm still here, and there's a reason you guys probably have studied me, all you other people making movies in these categories.
Yeah, he's the Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Best Supporting Actor.
Oh, this was the one where it's just like, I can't watch this guy without getting emotional and, like, not just feeling, like, good about life for a second. So Tony Coaster, am I correct?
Troy
Coaster.
Yeah. Coaster, yeah.
Won Best Supporting Actor, and who was he up against? He was up against J.K. Simmons.
Yes,
he was up against, I believe it was J.K. Simmons. It was Jesse Plemons, yes.
Cody Smith-McPhee.
Yes.
Both from Power of the Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And Ciarán Hinds from Belfast.
Yes. Okay. I think right choice. The only contention was Cody Smith-McPhee, and we'll talk about Power of the Dog when we talk about Best Pictures, because that was a really interesting arc that movie took over the last couple months. Because once that movie came out, I thought there was and it wasn't even that I thought it was the best movie. I just thought, it's not Oscar bait, but I was like, there's nothing that's gonna beat this movie. And then the time started evolving, and I was like, this movie is getting
Coda started picking up steam.
Yeah, Coda really on the other award shows, Coda really started getting hot. It got really hot. But I mean, I talked about Coda already. It's the subtle nuances that he has when he's acting and when he's signing. It's just, you feel it. It's so, I don't know anybody that uses, I probably know somebody that uses sign language, but not to me, or like, or that I've seen, but like, that's gotta feel real. Like, there's just this feeling you get when you watch him on screen. He's so charismatic too, but he's got like this strong-headedness about him. He's very tough, but he's very nurturing. It's like, it's a complete character in my opinion. His needs are immediately shown, his wants are immediately shown, his flaws are immediately shown, and I think that's something the director talked about too. It's like, just because I think I was doing some research just to help myself, and one thing that she talked about was when you're creating these characters, like these characters that have disabilities, when you're creating the character, don't focus on the disability as their fatal flaw. Their flaw should be actual human, like the human flaws, like
right,
yeah, like the things that make us human. That, and he had those in the movie. Like he had things like he only had this one vision for his daughter for most of the movie and what he should do, because he was trying to protect his business and he was trying to protect the family business, and not realizing that she had more potential beyond that. Like that's a flaw. That's a human flaw. That's not a death flaw. That's a real flaw. And
right.
It's something that really kind of heightens his character and heightens his argument for best supporting actor, which I think it was a really beautiful win. So yeah, just hats off to Coda, man. It's like I said, I don't even think it's in that echelon of movie, but it was the movie that we kind of needed.
Yeah,
I think it really was, and I think that's why it won Best Picture.
Best actress, best actor. Let's start with the actress first.
Please.
Just an absolutely stacked best actress category this year, won by Jessica Chastain, The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
We had Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter, which I'll talk about.
Penelope Cruz, Parallel Mothers.
Yes.
Nicole Kidman being the Ricardos, and Kristen Stewart Spencer did not come home with the Oscar.
Is she the St. Peter's of this whole thing? Or was it Andrew Garfield and Tick Tick? I think it's her.
I think it's her.
Yeah, it's the one where,
because everyone kind of came to a consensus probably like this year that like Andrew Garfield's pretty great, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just a great guy.
People were like, Kristen Stewart,
we don't know.
She's good, but is she great? She was great.
Yeah.
She didn't win, but she's great.
Yeah. I love Neon, the production house that produced this movie. I love their whole thing. It's like, she's still our queen. Like, yeah, like let's just talk about performances over who should have won and who shouldn't have won. Man, Kristen Stewart is just, it was about 20 minutes into the movie, and we get to the dinner party scene, and I was like, oh, that I don't feel Kristen Stewart one bit. This is Princess Diana. Like, this is her. Like, I don't feel any bit of this, like, Twilight era or anything else she's done or any skit she's been on, whatever. It didn't matter. It was just, that's the perfect example of becoming somebody else as an actor. And it was like, her performance was just so, it was surreal almost. Like, it was like, and that helps that you shoot the movie on film. It's a very angelic way to shoot a movie. A bunch of movies, like the resurgence of film is very prominent. Paul Thomas Anderson shot Licorice Pizza on film. Tragedy of Macbeth was shot on film. This was shot on film. It just helps. And it helps kind of retrograde the movie and put it back to like where the movie took place in the 90s. So, incredibly made movie. I can't say that enough. It's just, again, that feeling you get, like, there's this tension that's laid over this movie, and, like, it's just this, you're immediately put into her eyes of the uneasiness she must have felt every single day, living the way that she had to live, unfortunately, until she tragically passed away. Like, every day you feel like that, like, it's the Will Smith celebrity thing, like, okay, you're a celebrity, but nobody should have to feel like this, and they immediately address that out of the way, like, she's uneasy at all the time, she's an alien in that house every single day. There's a really great scene in that movie where Queen Elizabeth's there, and she has her dogs, and she's talking to her for a second, and like they're separated by the stairs, and like you feel like there's just uneasiness, like there's just something's wrong, and like you can never we all know what it is, but you can't put your finger on it, and neither probably could she, but she knew something was wrong, and that she wasn't one, and she didn't, quote unquote, didn't belong. But
right. Talk about the winner. Talk about Jessica Chastain.
Sorry,
a little bit.
We love you, Kristen. Yeah, I mean, the Oscar clip kind of encapsulated what we got right about Eyes of Tammy Faye, but it's kind of Jessica Chastain she kind of gets off this, like, it's that embodiment piece. It's like you becoming a different person, but I think she had a little bit better of a range almost. Like, it was like a more of like a physical range that she kind of embodied a little bit. So, hats off to Jessica Chastain. I mean, long time coming. She's one of the more notable actresses in the world. Really great spokeswoman for a lot of issues and problems that are happening around the world too. Not that should ever dictate an Oscar, but it's good sometimes. It's really good and whether you like it or not, that's another avenue what movies are used for. The message thing is like, sorry, that's what some movies are used for. Like, you look at a whole bunch of your movies that you never think would be about something, they're probably about something. And yeah, if you like it or not. But yeah, Jessica Chastain, great performance. I enjoyed her. I hate to say it. I think what hurts Olivia Colman for Lost Daughter is the narrative of that movie started going really off the rails. And also, the actress that played her younger self, I always forget her name. She's a really incredible actress. Like, she also was really great in that role, and I was like, she's playing the same person, and now you're kind of battling with somebody else.
Yeah.
But Olivia Colman Olivia Colman's Olivia Colman. I mean, you talk about The Favorite and some of the other movies she's done. I mean, she's royalty, and rightfully so. And I remember that it's like, it was once you settled into the middle part of the movie, and it's just like you start revealing more and more about her past with her own daughters. It's so disheartening. It's so melancholy. It's just really sad, and she sells it every second. So that was a tough category almost. I didn't see Parallel Mothers, but I heard just countless great things about Penelope Cruz as well. And I mean, she also gets not a bad rap, but like the Do You Belong in a Best Actress category rap, and it's like, we
talked about that.
It's the thing ago for Kristen Stewart. It's almost like they're acting. It's almost like that they're not like this in real life. Yeah. So yeah, it was a tough category. Extremely tough. I think it should have been Kristen Stewart. Went to Jessica Chastain, and I couldn't be happier for her. So,
speaking of tough, Best Actor, man, it's a who's who. Right?
This was the one. It was this one in Best Picture. This was a notable tough Best Picture category year because
besides Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up probably shouldn't have been there.
Let's not get into it. Hey man, all I'll say is once this World War III stuff started happening, and I was looking
Don't Look Up, it became a lot more relevant.
Yeah, it's almost like they were telling the truth.
So we have Denzel Washington, Tragedy of Macbeth, playing the titular Macbeth. We have our guy, patron saint of the podcast, Andrew Garfield, for his portrayal.
I thought you were going to say Javier Bardem. That would have been funnier.
For Andrew Garfield for his performance as Jonathan Larson in Tick, Tick, Boom. Benedict Cumberbatch, Power of the Dog. Javier Bardem for Dune. Just kidding.
He did give some bars when he was talking about being Outworlders. That was really good.
Being the Ricardos, and then the eventual winner, Will Smith.
Let's start with Andrew Garfield. Let's just knock this out of the way.
I loved it.
Me too.
I love Tick, Tick, Boom so much.
I don't know if it's the Netflix in the room, or I don't know what it is, because if you want to use that logic, then The Irishman shouldn't have been. But again, you're having Martin Scorsese do your movie with.
I mean, Coda was an Apple Plus thing.
Right.
Like, streaming has broken.
Right, yeah, it's broken everywhere. Right. It's just, I don't know. It's because I guess some people don't like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I don't know if that's I don't know what it is, but Tick, Tick, Boom, I felt always had an uphill battle for everything. I don't know what it was, but...
Well, you know what the uphill battle was? It was Spider-Man.
Right, true.
Because Andrew Garfield couldn't get a word out edgewise about Tick, Tick, Boom.
You know what's even sadder about that? It's what the narrative's about Jonathan Larson, who created one of the more famous... Like, I know of Rent. Like, that's
everybody knows Rent.
Yeah, it's one of the
They
plays.
don't know who wrote it. They know now.
It's like Cats, Rent, Lion King are like the plays. Like, those are the plays you know about. So... it's just the tragic nature of which Jonathan Larson passed, and like this being like a celebration of his life. And like, again, the big thing about this movie, and it's funny that more people didn't like resonate with, it's like, this is a movie that so many people just needed because of what it's about. It's like being 30 and like being nervous. Sorry. You're doing great, man. You're doing great.
Yeah, I am Jonathan Larson.
Maybe you are Jonathan Larson. But seriously, like, that's what the movie's about. It's like, you have time. Like, it's just the whole argument is like, the narrative piece is like, there's just this ticking clock that I just can't get out of my head.
I mean, the first song, 3090, is about that.
Confession time. I've listened to that soundtrack every day.
It's so good.
Every day.
The whole thing
at least one of those songs gets played. like even just the charismatic nature of, and he's infectious. Like
he just nailed it.
Like,
go on YouTube. Watch
the Boho Days segment in that movie.
Watch that, but also watch the old grainy 1990s footage.
Oh yeah,
of Jonathan Larson performing, and you put them next to each other.
Jesus,
good lord,
killed it.
He just became Jonathan Larson.
Down to the hair,
the eyes,
yeah.
I think the therapy scene with Vanessa Hudgens.
Yes.
Just off the wall.
It's New York. Everybody's unhappy in New York.
The intercutting between he and the argument with his girlfriend and the song with Vanessa Hudgens. Vanessa Hudgens, very good in Tick, Tick, Boom.
Yeah. And also, on top of that, our girl Storm, for a little bit, why am I blanking on her name? I just had it in my head, too.
Yeah.
I'll remember it. This is going to be a running thing where I don't remember it, and then you're going to start the next part, and I'm going to remember her name.
But yeah, man, he was so good. I knew he wasn't going to win, but I wanted him to.
I wanted to deny it for so long. And if he would have won, it would have been like... But he just looked like he was having a grand old time at the Oscars, which is... It just makes me happy. Like, it just...
Was
Alexandra
he
Shipp.
for Social Network as supporting?
Let's see.
I don't think he was, for some reason. Should have been.
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah, Mark. It's one of the best scenes of the last 10 years. He said, how much were my shares diluted? How much were his?
He's plugged in.
Yeah, he said he's plugged. Oh, is he now? Justin Timberlake was in that movie?
Justin Timberlake was good in that movie.
Remember when Justin Timberlake had that run?
Had like an acting thing?
He had an acting thing, and then he just dropped 2020 Experience, and it just was the hottest star. I vividly remember that. I was in high school. This guy was premium content.
Who else are we talking about here?
Let's get to Denzel.
Denzel. Dude, I talked about Tragedy Macbeth already.
We have similar thoughts that for all my basketball fans out there, right? I'm going to simplify this. If you don't like LeBron, every year he should be mentioned in the MVP conversation. And I think this is where Denzel is going to be for the rest of his career, unless he works with a director that's just, one of the directors. Like, what did he talk about? He wanted to work with Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
He talked about that. Listen.
Put him in Oppenheimer.
Put him in Oppenheimer. So, listen. I think he's going to suffer from that a bit because it's this very specific scene in Macbeth. And we just talked about it before he hopped on. It's when he's fighting one of Macduff's people. And he's sitting on the throne and he's got his leg out and he's got his one arm up. And he says, what does he say? He's just like, are you born of a woman? And, and then the guy's like,
Aye.
Yeah,
of course, like any man. Yeah. Right. And he's like, I have nothing to fear from you.
I don't fear you. And then 60-odd-old Denzel Washington is performing action sequences, just beating dudes left and right until Macduff hits him with the ultimate
loophole.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I talked about it when we both saw it at separate times. But when he dives into those soliloquies,
oh my god,
you stop. Stop and watch the movie.
It's in trance. It's like it's an otherworldly type of thing that you can't help but look at.
That's like everyone jokes about like Shakespeare and like Shakespeare's lame.
Until somebody like Denzel starts.
When he starts delivering, you're like, yeah, I get it. Like I get why these stories have stood the test of time for 600 years,
and why they're the blueprint stories for so many.
Because you just stop. You stop what you're doing.
And
if you're watching it at home, like, and you're on your phone, when he starts talking, you're like,
Yep. And there's this thing. So the thing is, you have two ways to go about doing Shakespearean movies. There's three ways. There's 1A is you do it set into the Shakespearean time, but you just have normal you just throw in the little like eyes and like just the little like just a small bit of Shakespearean language, which
Denzel was also a part of.
Right.
Back in the day.
Right. Right, but you still have normal, like, as if we're speaking.
He did Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah,
which was that.
Right. Instead of, like, saying the, or, like, you say thy, like, things like that, right? 1B is doing you said it in modern times.
Oh.
But, right.
Talking about O?
Yeah.
Julia Stiles, Mackay Pfeiffer.
Right, so you said it in modern times, but you still have it, it's just based on the
story, yeah.
Right, it's the story, but it's just, modernized. Then they did 1C, which is
You do the play.
You just do the play. And, like, I was a little nervous about it at first, and then Denzel started talking. Oh, yeah. Immediately worked.
Yep.
Immediately worked.
Yep.
And just watching this, like, we talk about Will Smith as, like, you know, foundational actor. Denzel Washington is probably the foundational actor. If it's not him, it's, like, Tom Hanks or something, but...
Oh, don't get us started.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do the Tom Hanks versus Denzel episode.
I can't wait.
And it's gonna divulge into, you know, listen, it's simple. You switch them in roles. And again, we went through this and it still doesn't work. Like, Denzel and Catch Me If You Can is amazing. You put Tom Hanks in Training Day, it's still amazing. It's still great.
Might be amazing for a different reason, but it's still probably amazing.
It's ironically amazing. But yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch, Power of the Dog.
Great performance. Did you watch Power of the Dog?
Nah, man.
I did.
I heard mixed things, honestly, and I was just like,
it's more of like the boring thing that movies are boring because there's not, you know, things going on at every waking turn. But I mean, he commands so much presence and so much power from, pun intended, like so much power from his roles. But this one it's tough. I don't think it's going to be his career defining performance. I still think he has that in him because he's in his 40s.
Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, that's the one. Because he said, what's better than one Benedict Cumberbatch?
3 Benedict Cumberbatches.
At least 3.
At least that we know about.
Yeah. But no, it's just the counter of how it's like the old masculine way of one of the big pieces of the narrative. It's like the masculine way about going about things in the Old West versus like how things, you know, could be and how they should be. So yeah, he has to be that villain that you can not exactly root for, but that you can, you know, understand where they're coming from and understand the world they live in. And I think he plays that well. He plays a jerk really well, but he plays a jerk that, you know, there's something underneath that's just itching to come out, but it can't. It simply can't. And I think you could put 2 and 2 together. But no, I think he was a really good performance. I'm not gonna lie. I thought when the night started, I thought he was gonna be the one to sneak it out. I thought it was gonna be him. But no.
Our guy, Big Willie style.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, overshadowed by other events.
But let's talk about King Richard. You watch King Richard?
I did.
Again, that it's the feel good more, but based on a true story, feel good. Which
usually does well.
Yeah, it does well, but it's a minefield almost because you have to do a couple things. You have to pay respect to the actual people. You have to have it at least a little bit realistic of what actually happened, and you have to capture the heart of the situation. So this one it's a heart snatcher, man. It's a heart stealer. It's a feel good. It's a really triumphant. Because Coda, like, my initial thought for Coda, I got nervous because I was like, oh, this is going to be a Disney movie. It's going to be a Disney movie with more cursing. Like, it's going to be like Edge of 17. Like, I got nervous. Same thing happened with King Richard. I'm like, this is just an ESPN special, essentially. And then everybody settles into what they're doing, and then it gets a little bit smoother. Yep. And then stars start to shine, and Will Smith definitely shined through. He gives that performance of Richard Williams that's like, I'm cool. I'm crazy. So what? I'm nuts. Who cares? My daughters are my priority, and that's something that people can relate to. Like, once your child is
I'm
born,
crazy, but am I crazy
right.
for like thinking my daughters are going to be the greatest tennis player ever?
Right. Like, because people, it's all talk until the work needs to be done. Like, people want to work until it's time to work, and I think that's all Richie Williams. Like, that's his whole persona. It's like, I will work my daughters because I know they have this. It's not like I'm working them because I want to kill them because I'm working them because I love them.
I believe in them.
And more important, I believe in them. Like, I believe, like, and it's not even just Venus and Serena, it's his other daughter. Like, I believe she's one of the smartest women to ever walk this. Like, I believe this. Like, I think he even says the line in the movie, like, layman's terms, like, what good is this plan if I don't believe in it? Like, I need to live this plan if it's gonna work. Like, I had this plan, like, what good is it if I'm just like, if I let one thing slip? Like, it goes through the cracks. Like, I can't let that happen.
Yeah, it's a really magnetic performance. Mm-hmm. It's Will Smith at his best. Yeah, honestly, when he can sink his teeth into these emotional kind of heart-wrenching roles, he nails it. Mm-hmm. He nails it every time. I'm double-edged sword. I'm happy that he finally got his recognition, but unfortunately overshadowed by the other incident. Mm-hmm. Which is unfortunately how he's going to be remembered for the Oscars this year, not for the amazing performance he gave, but for the not so amazing performance he gave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a shame. And then I guess we probably have to speed through these last two. Best director.
Yeah, this is the second to last one that's got a bit of this is the controversial one, I guess.
Yeah.
Because of the name that was left off this list. And
we talked about it, yeah.
We've already been through this, so keep it simple. I think because obviously actors are important, but just because a movie doesn't get nominated for acting awards means the movie, it's a weird argument to have that the movie's bad. Like, these movies you love, like, not every movie you love is nominated for an Oscar, right? So, like, the one that was nominated for an Oscar, just because it didn't have acting noms doesn't mean it's a bad movie or a bad narrative. Like, still a great narrative, and, like, I don't think it's sad, like, Blade Runner's a good example of this, like, not appreciating the movie until after it comes out, and then you sit back and you're like, this is like another experience that I'm living through right now. Like, it was the second time I watched Blade Runner, and I kind of just was like, because the first time I watched Blade Runner after 2049, after I watched the original Blade Runner. I was like, this is a really great double feature. Like, he really encompasses Ridley Scott's world, and he kind of makes it his own, and like he adds like his new age sci-fi touch on top of it, which he's become so famous for, obviously through Arrival. But you get to 2049 for the second one, and I watched it alone, and I was like, this is visually just I couldn't believe a movie like that is able to be made. And I mean, Dune doubles down on that same thing, and it's coupled with the narrative, and you don't get that without somebody that loves the lore. I think also people also don't know what directors do. I think people only think that directors tell actors what to do. Like, that might have also hurt him a little bit, because just not knowing the true role of a director. Like, people are like, think directors are in the chair, just yell cut, yell action, and just say, do this by this. No, it's so much more than that.
So I have a question. I have a question for you. If he were to be nominated for this, who are you taking out?
Kenneth Branagh for Belfast.
Quick answer.
Because I've thought about this, because who was it? It was Kenneth Branagh. It was the director of Drive My Car, who I'm leaving in there.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Your
guy.
And I'm leaving because the movie making of Licorice Pizza is just so incredible. I'm leaving it in there.
Spielberg.
And also, just real quick for Licorice Pizza, it was the task of him having two first-time actors on top of that and give real performances. Spielberg, again, figurehead, Mount Rushmore. And what was the last one? It was...
The winner. The one who won.
Oh, but yeah, right. Jane Champion. And which... I think for me it was her... It's weird. It was... The way she was crafting hers was probably the best example of visual storytelling outside of Dune. Because I think he should have won. So that's... Even not being nominated, I think he should have been the winner. But... I think she's the second best example of like visual storytelling and shots that it's the Chekhov's gun of shots, of like shot list of like, there's a really great wide of them. It's you only see Benedict Cumberbatch and Courtney McPhee. You only see their heads, and it's the big mountain. It's like a large mountain, and then he asks him, because it's the name of the movie. He's like, "What do you see?" And Courtney McPhee, without a second thought, says a dog. And he's like, "I asked all my other guys this. They always get it wrong." And then immediately he responds, "It's a dog." And it's the big theme of the movie. It's like perception, but it's like I said, her shot list was incredible, and just coupled with Benedict Cumberbatch's performance, and then Courtney McPhee, Jesse Plemons, you got three. I guess I just counted my whole argument, but yes, you do get three. You get two Best Supporting and one. And was Kristen Stewart nominated for Best Supporting Actress as well? I'm pretty sure she was.
I don't.
Oh, I don't think she was.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, there's her shot list was incredible, and kind of coupling that with...
Kristen Dunst was nominated.
Yes.
Best Supporting Actress. Yes.
So yeah, you got 4 nominations. So good job, Jane Champion. I still think it was Denis Villeneuve. I think it's the world he that's what movie makers do. It's the world you craft out of it. That's the true amalgamation. It's the people that live in that world and the world itself.
Yeah.
And then the narrative, that's plot, it's character, plot, and setting. That's the 3 bases of storytelling.
Yeah. And it goes back to my argument earlier that the people voting on this and nominating for this just didn't see it. Didn't look that hard into it. Didn't look at it more than what,
It's just a sci-fi movie.
It's just a sci-fi movie. The world was essentially, the way people look at it,
more.
The world was created for him, and he just put it on screen. You know, what I mean?
Much more than that.
So Best Picture, you talked about it throughout this episode. Coda.
Yeah, I think I can talk about my big argument, my big thing, the big thing that's been bugging me, and it's just ever since I got into movies, like really got into movies in 2016. It's the thing that I think about constantly, and it's the actual thing. It's the movie. It's like we always get so focused on everything else. Like, what's this person wearing? Who's this person dating? Are these people together? Are we on Twitter? Are we as a collective going to hate this person because it's cool to hate them? Are we going to love this person because it's cool to stand them? And we always take away from the actual movie and the beauty of like what these things are. And like, it's like incredible from like the Lumiere brothers to present day, like how far we've come. And like, it's I don't care who it is. Everybody has their feel good movie. They have their comfort. It's the same thing as music. They have the thing they latch onto. Like, that's what movies are. And that's why I think Coda won. Like, it's a movie that people can resonate with and some people need. Like, a movie that represents them. And it's just, that's what it's got to be. And like, it's funny. I was watching the Oscars with my family and I said, you know what my favorite part, because obviously it's after the Will Smith thing, and it's like, and it was the James Bond segment happened, and it's just, there's no like opinion, it's just a sizzle reel of Bond. And then like, one of the great things I love is, so you know how there was that moment, every movie gets a little sizzle reel. They get a little bit of, there's nothing, no talking, it's just things that happen it's my favorite part of the Oscars. I love it because it just showcases art. It's just that. It's the thing. It's the movies. It's the thing we come to love. It's the thing we go on Friday nights to see with our friends, our family. It's the thing we talk about. It's the thing we relate to. That's what it should be about. And some of these movies on this list were there for reasons. Some don't look up, snuck their way in there. But yeah, let's just run me down some of these movies. I'll give you my quick thoughts, and I think that's it.
West Side Story.
Yeah, the spectacle of the situation was great. Some of the best directing of motion you can see, and Steven Spielberg is just truly a legend. Also want to shout out Rachel Zegler giving a really amazing performance. Glad she was nominated. She's 20 and look what she's done, being nominated for Best Actress. Her career's got just endless limitations to it. Or no limitations to it. So. Incredible crafted movie. Yeah, it was funny. Like I was playing out the scenarios if different movies were to be set. I was like, I wouldn't be mad if West Side Story won. I wouldn't be mad.
Power of the Dog.
It wasn't my favorite movie of the year, and I guess I'm just a simpleton and stupid. But then I get times where I talk about Macbeth, and I'm like, I think I'm pretty smart. But I think it was trying. It's so tough to say. There were just a lot of moments of like. It was just weird moments of like, it was a lot of tension from the score, and it was like a lot of like heavy moments like that were just, I think it pressed a little too hard, if that makes sense, and they just stayed a little too long. I think that was like, if I were to summarize that movie, I think some of the moments stayed a little too long. Still, crafting of films, amazing, performances really solid. It just wasn't one of my favorite movies.
Nightmare Alley.
Nightmare Alley was a late game shot clock movie for me. I watched that the day of the Oscars, and Guillermo del Toro, again, it's the world building aspect of filmmaking. He crafts these amazing worlds. It's weird. I love the angle as which he shoots some of his characters as they enter scenes. It's kind of like a video game way to shoot it, like as it's like the third person as they walk in, which is cool for like Bradley Cooper. But no, it's like. It's a really creepy movie, which is great for Guillermo del Toro. It's like the unsung stepchild of this whole thing. Which I was like, I hope Nightmare Alley wins for comedic purposes. But like I said, that's another movie that I would have switched out for some other movies, which I guess I could talk about at the very end of movies that I probably would have put instead of what we got. But yeah, I think I might take this movie off the list, but I think, again, a no harm, no foul movie, and Guillermo del Toro is one of the best working today.
Licorice Pizza and Dune, we kind of talked about at length. Not much more needs to be said there. King Richard?
Again, it's the Coda route of thinking. It's a feel-good movie. I found myself almost like teary-eyed at the end of the movie where they were intercutting them with actual Venus and Serena. Emotionally impactful. You get your best acting performance out of it as well. And it's a character study, and that's usually the movies that work. And it's just unsung hero of that movie, John Bernthal.
John Bernthal.
Just
Absolutely.
out of nowhere, I
Great
believe
heat
that.
check performance, but
Yeah, it was. It was quick, but it was impactful. But again, that movie's just a beautifully crafted movie. Glad to see that. It's not as simple because I guarantee you, in the media at the time, Richard Williams was probably thought as just a crazy guy that his daughters were good at tennis. No, it's so more. That's life. Life is so much more complex than that, and I'm glad this movie was made to kind of showcase that.
Drive My Car.
Again, my type of movie, kind of that minimalistic approach, kind of that kind of just, like I said, the existence of life and kind of contemplating those bigger ideals of like who we are. Not on that like scale of I don't know, like watching the Sci-Fi Channel, but I mean like the little things about life of who kind of make us and shape us and like how we interact with people and kind of how people come and go from our life. So really enjoyed Drive My Car. Great Japanese film, great film overall.
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up is a movie that became extremely more So Adam McKay is really hit or miss because you get movies like Vice, which people are like divided. Then you get movies like Don't Look Up, which I guess the more consensus is that this movie had no business, which I agree, this movie didn't have any business being here. And then you get movies from him like The Big Short, which is like, oh yeah, that's the one where it's like, it should be there. I think it's the level of narrative and what they're trying to, portray. And like, it's the social commentary aspect is where people get a little iffy on this. I just don't think the movie was amazingly made or anything like that. But you have these, A-list on
actors,
top of A-list actors, which I think help. Leo gave a really solid performance. It's funny because like Leo would never do a movie like that in a million years, especially for Netflix. But then he found out it was about, it was a commentary on climate change. He's like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, it's gonna be good. So I think it's a more fun movie than people. I don't think it's bad by any means that people are saying it is. I don't think it's a best picture.
Sure. Belfast.
Belfast is a tough one, man. It's like that, it's somewhere in between where I look at Licorice Pizza and I look at King Richard and Coda. It's somewhere like in that nexus right in between them of like that feel good, but also there's stuff going on that just you need to be addressed. So not like the narrative being like, canceling could be made from that narrative, but like, the seriousness of the nature of the movie. But it is a beautiful movie. I think hats off to Kenneth Branagh. Like, as much as I said, like, he shouldn't have been in the places he was, he did an incredible job on this movie, crafting it. And I think I always say about black and white allows you to like not focus on color and focus more on like, it forces you to have to focus on performance. Mm-hmm. Like it has to, because you strip all the color away. It's like, it's the ocular way of thinking about things of like color psychology. Like once you strip color psychology away, your next thing your brain's going to go to is like the people inside of you. Like, what are they doing? So no, really, I thought it was a really good movie. The kid in that movie was really good too. It gave me similar vibes to the young kid from Minari as well. It's kind of, they kind of sublet each other for this year. So.
And then the winner, last but not least, Coda.
I already talked about Coda when I did my little Coda review, but it just, I can't get that scene where after she had her performance and they went into the front yard and she was singing to her father and he put his hands on her her vocal cords in her throat and they both like, that's the scene where you're like, I don't care if you're like Hannibal Lecter, you're gonna feel something after that scene. But no, and it's a really inspiring movie of what movies can be and like how narratives are so important, like why we need them to kind of advance. Like movies, like it's crazy. I was watching, there's this really good YouTube channel that I was watching. I believe it's called the Royal Ocean Film Society. And it was like midnight and I had to work in the morning the next morning. I was like, let me fall asleep to a YouTube video. And like, I just let the words ring in my head and I was like, oh, I needed this. And it's the philosophy of like, if you want to make a movie, you need to live. It's like, cool, you can go study like, what's the book? What's the one movie book or storytelling book? The Anatomy of Story, whatever.
Yeah.
You can read all those books you want, but did you introduce yourself to that stranger on the side of the road? Did you travel across the country? Like those things are so important. So it's like taking that approach to movies is also really, really good. So it's movies we those are movies we still need. Like, as much as we want to focus on these crazy narratives that, like, do all these crazy things, like, sometimes we just need a movie about a girl that wants to be a singer, that comes from a deaf family, that she's facing an uphill battle, and there's a lot of animosity, but there's a lot of love that comes from that, too. We need more movies like that. We need them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's all it needs to be sometimes, especially with the Oscars. Like, what people got to get out of their heads is that the best picture at the Oscar is the best movie. And, you know, a lot of the times, some of the times, that's not even the case. It's just what movie made you feel the most. You know what I mean? That's really what it comes down to. And I think that's what they nailed this year is Coda was that movie that made you feel things. Good things, which is always a positive. Sheesh. We were going to do a Moon Knight preview, but we ran way long talking about the Oscars.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just to talk about us for a second. I think that's great. Like, cool, we talk about, you know, Marvel and DC and Star Wars and stuff, but, like, this is where movies originated. Like, movies like this are, like, these are the movies that were coming out all the time. And it's like I said, movies are like a multiverse run, almost. It's like, there's these different pockets of reality that every movie exists in every single time, where you can connect to this different person. But, like, it's like, you know, when people talk about, like, Miss Marvel is a good example. Like, when people are like, oh, I don't know how to connect to this person. I was like, you didn't have any awkward phase and you were just perfect in high school? No, you weren't. So you have at least a little bit of relation. Like, you can throw me a random character and I can at least have I don't care if they're whoever they are. I can have at least an inkling of understanding of that person.
Yeah.
And in any movie. And that's the beauty of it. It's, you talk about plot, setting, character, the 3 building blocks of story. Setting, like, these places, like, it can either be these places that are also familiar to us, like, I'll bring up Minari again, like, just being in Arkansas in I believe in the 1970s or 80s, like, that's familiar to some people, like, especially being a different race in that time, like, it was probably difficult, and some people definitely lived that. And then going to these, like, extraordinary worlds like Arrakis and Dune and Caladan, like, it's the places that we wish that we can visit sometimes, and, like, we wish we can visit these other worlds and, like, experience their cultures and, like, how they kind of navigate their life. It's like, it's kind of it's the scale of, like, what makes this incredible. It's like, it can be so real, it could be so extraordinary, but the median is always the human. It's always going to be the human. It's always the person you relate to, and it's what makes this, in my opinion, the greatest art form there's ever been created.
I can't even follow that up. That was very well said.
Nice.
I guess the big thing, the lesson to be learned from all of this and from the Oscars in general is, like I said earlier, it's obviously an impressive accolade, but it shouldn't inhibit you from trying to create the thing that you want to create. You know, we go back to that idea of Oscar baiting. You know what I mean? Like, just make the thing that you want to make, and, you know, if it's good, people are going to recognize it as such, whether it wins an Academy Award or not. Right,
because, like, one film I'll throw out there that definitely I thought was missing from this was Come On, Come On. Mike Mills' film with Joaquin Phoenix that I talked about. And a movie like that, just talking about, if you want to talk the drama route, I mean, just in general as a film, like, you want to talk about the crafting of the film, like, the movie was shot black and white. So what that has to do, it strips away your color theory of how you look at images. So now you have to now you're focusing on shot selection, you're focusing on the character themselves. So, like, it strips everything away. And just the performances that were in that movie, it's so real. Like, those people are just living. They're just living, and it's like the difficulties that people that you know or yourself could be facing too. Like, it's just the normal, everyday things. Like, it's amazing. So, like, who cares that movie didn't get at the end? Who cares? Because exactly. I know, and so many other people know, it's an incredible movie that's so potent and so impactful. Like, that's what a movie should be about at the end of the day.
Yep. Agreed. Totally agreed. We got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Whew. Who would have thought?
I did.
We joked last night. We're like, we're not going to talk about the Oscars the whole time, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. So, besides that, you can follow us on Twitter at ProjectINF_pod. You can follow us on Facebook, like, share, and subscribe from there. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, any plethora of podcasting websites.
Oh no, we forgot to talk about the 2 new awards.
Oh.
Real quick. So the Oscars said, we need more people to watch, and we're not going to do it in the 2018 way. We're going to do it in our new way. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but Spider-Man No Way Home came out last year. So they said, we're going to add 2 new categories. We're going to add the best. We're going to add the cheer moment in Oscar history, which was confusing because I was like, well, how do you retroactively give a movie an Oscar? And then they did the fan movie of the year. Guess what director just was sweeping?
It was a sweep.
It was a
clean sweep.
And no, it wasn't John Watts for Spider-Man. It was Zack Snyder, and not for the same movie either. So what was the cheer moment? It was Dreamgirls, which I thought was a pretty cool nod. Mm-hmm. It was Dreamgirls. It was Avengers Endgame. It was, what was 5? What was 5? I can't remember. Oh, I think not Star Wars, not Star Trek. Wasn't Harry Potter. I can't remember what it was. But the 2 spot rolls around, and I'm like, you know what? I think they probably will do Zack Snyder's Justice League just because of the Fallen, because there's no way anything beats 3 generations of Spider-Man swinging together, and Andrew Garfield's there on top of that. And then number 2 rolls, and I see the 3 Spider-Man swinging, and I said, hold on a second. Hold on. Because if they're in the second spot, and then the first spot rolls, and then all I see is Ezra Miller's hand out in the
everyone's favorite actor,
mm-hmm.
Ezra Miller,
just his hand out in the Speed Force, and then the scene rolls from the Snyder Cut, which we've talked about on here, which is a really cool scene, really awesome scene.
Not as good as the other one.
The cheer moment of all time over Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yep,
absolutely not. Not for a second.
No, absolutely.
Theaters
not.
were shaking when Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home happened.
People weren't even allowed in theaters when the Snyder Cut was out.
Exactly. It's no, but it's a fan vote, which I don't want to get into it, but we all know. And then even more, the fan movie of the year again was not Spider-Man No Way Home. It was Army of the Dead.
So good.
The Schneider fit.
So good.
I gotta respect it.
You gotta respect it.
I have to respect it. It's incredible. I can't even be mad. I'm just...
Yeah, you gotta respect it.
Gotta respect it.
So good. Ah, man.
So...
Yeah. So that happened. What a great way to cap off our Oscars conversation than with Zack Snyder and Justice League.
You called me a Zack Snyder stan.
Go back and watch or listen to our Zack Snyder trilogy retrospectives.
I was in the trenches for Man of Steel.
Where did I leave off? Oh yeah, podcast.
Yeah.
You can listen to us. I covered that already. Instagram,
Project Infinite Pod.
Thank you. Yeah, man, that's the Oscars. Like I said, we were going to talk about Moon Knight, but no. Sorry, Oscar Isaac. You're going to have to wait 6 weeks.
Yeah, six weeks. Sorry, man.
Next week, though, speaking of Oscars, we're going to review Morbius.
We're gonna watch the Batman. We're going to watch the true Batman.
The one true Batman.
The one true Batman.
Jared Leto himself.
Yeah, not Michael Morbius. Jared Leto himself.
The best actor in the universe. I believe he won that award once.
Best supporting actor in the universe.
He's taking the main role. Tyrese Gibson's also in this.
I almost signed this off myself when you said that.
He almost slapped me. He almost Will Smith slapped me for saying Tyrese.
Are you going to call me the Will Smith of the podcast now?
I'm going to have to.
You got to give me something better. I had this beautiful speech about what movies are supposed to be, and you're going to give me that? Unbelievable.
The Will Smith of the podcast, everybody.
Which Will Smith, though? Why is it Wild Wild West Will Smith? Because I knew you were going there. I just had to make the decision.
Don't want to see my hand where my hip be at. He warned us. In 1997, Chris Rock found out on Sunday night.
The hard way. I don't think I can sign us off any better than that. We'll see you next week for what is sure to be a fun-filled review of Morbius. Because this is what we do. We're psychotic. Could we choose to review something better? Probably. We could talk about Sonic.
Look, if you don't think we're going to talk about Sonic at some point, you're kidding yourself.
Absolutely not.
All right, guys. We will see you next week for what is sure to be a leading contender in the Best Picture category of 2022-2023. That will be Morbius, based on the Marvel comic book character Morbius.
The Marvel Legend.
No, it's back. The Marvel Legend. Michael Keaton is in this.
Michael Keaton is in this.
All
No
right.
spoilers, but the director just spoiled the whole movie. Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. We'll see you next week for Morbius, guys. Goodbye.